I never thought a piece of paper taped to my apartment door would change my life. Final notice, payment due. The words felt heavier than they looked. I stood there longer than I should have, keys dangling from my fingers, pretending I didn't already know what it meant. I was 3 weeks late, again. The freelance contracts had dried up faster than I expected, and pride had kept me from telling anyone how close I was to losing everything. This place wasn't fancy. 1 bedroom, creaky floors, a window that faced a brick wall instead of a skyline, but it was mine, or at least it had been. I pushed the door open and dropped my bag, sitting on the edge of the couch like my body suddenly weighed more than the furniture could hold. I told myself I'd figure it out. I always did, somehow. That was when the knock came. Not loud, not demanding, just patient. I opened the door expecting a property manager, maybe a warning speech I'd already rehearsed apologies for. Instead, I saw her. She was standing slightly to the side, like she didn't want to intimidate me. Dark coat, hair pulled back loosely, eyes calm but searching. She looked out of place in the hallway, like someone who didn't belong to notices taped on doors. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Alina. I own the building." That surprised me. Landlords didn't usually introduce themselves, not like this. "I wanted to talk," she continued, her voice steady but careful. "Not about evicting you. Not yet." My stomach tightened anyway. We sat at the small kitchen table. She didn't open a folder, didn't pull out paperwork. She just folded her hands together, like this conversation mattered to her more than numbers on a page. "You've been a good tenant," she said. "Quiet, respectful. You take care of the place." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "I recently renovated one of the units upstairs," she went on. "It's empty, fully paid off, no mortgage." I frowned. "Okay." She took a breath, a real one, like she was choosing her next words carefully. "I'd like to offer you a deal." That word made my heart jump. "Stay in the upstairs apartment," she said. "No rent, utilities included, for 6 months." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" Her lips curved into a small, nervous smile. "I know it sounds strange. It's not charity. I prefer knowing who lives in my building, and I don't like seeing good people forced out when life gets messy." I should have asked more questions. I should have been suspicious. Instead, relief washed over me so fast my eyes burned. "Why me?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, and for the first time, something flickered behind her calm exterior. Loneliness. Not desperation, just space, like a room that had been empty for a long time. "Because I trust you," she said. I didn't know that sentence would stay with me for weeks. The upstairs apartment was beautiful. Sunlight poured in through wide windows, hardwood floors, clean lines, a quiet kind of warmth that made it feel lived in, even though no one had been there yet. She handed me the keys herself. "No pressure," she said. "If you decide it's not right, just tell me." I thanked her more times than I can remember. That night, unpacking boxes, I told myself this was temporary, a reset, nothing more. But life doesn't care what you promise yourself. I started seeing her more often after that, in the mornings watering plants in the courtyard, in the evenings walking the halls like she was checking on something she already knew was fine. Our conversations were small at first. "How's the place treating you?" "Better than I deserve." She laughed softly at that. I learned things without trying to learn. She'd inherited the building from her aunt. She worked long hours, mostly from home. She cooked too much food for one person and gave leftovers away instead of freezing them. One night, she knocked on my door, holding a container. "Too much soup," she said. "Help me out?" I let her in. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, bowls in our hands, a movie playing neither of us was really watching. The silence wasn't awkward. It was easy, the kind that settles instead of presses. At one point, our hands brushed when we reached for the same napkin. She froze. So did I. It wasn't dramatic, no sparks flying, just awareness. sudden and sharp. "I should go," she said quietly, standing too quickly. "Yeah, of course." At the door, she paused. "This arrangement," she said, not turning around, "it doesn't come with expectations. I want you to know that." I nodded. "I do." But after she left, I sat awake far longer than I should have, staring at the ceiling, replaying the way her voice softened when she said my name. I reminded myself of the facts. She was my landlord. This was a deal, temporary. And yet, something had already shifted. I hadn't just been given an apartment, I'd been given space. And space has a way of letting feelings breathe. Living upstairs changed the rhythm of my days in ways I didn't expect. The apartment felt like a gift I wasn't supposed to touch too much, like if I leaned into it too hard, it might disappear. Every morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, and every morning I reminded myself this wasn't permanent. 6 months, that's all. I counted the days without writing them down. Elena never treated it like a favor she'd done me. She didn't check in too often. She didn't bring it up unless I did. If anything, she gave me more space than before, as if she was afraid of crossing a line she'd drawn for herself. But lines have a way of fading when you don't look at them directly. We started running into each other by accident, or at least that's what it felt like. In the laundry room, in the courtyard, once in the stairwell late at night when both of us had forgotten something we needed. "How's work?" she asked one evening, leaning against the railing while I struggled with a bag of groceries. I shrugged. "Busy, unstable, freelance life." She smiled in understanding. I know the feeling. Different version, same anxiety. That surprised me. I'd assumed someone who owned buildings didn't feel unstable. But she said it so plainly, like she wasn't trying to impress me. We started talking longer, about small things at first. Books we never finished, cities we thought we'd move to but never did, childhood homes that didn't quite feel like home anymore. One night, she invited me into her apartment. "I promise it's not another soup situation," she said, half smiling. Her place was quieter than mine. Softer lighting, fewer personal items, like she didn't like leaving traces of herself behind. A single framed photo sat on the shelf, her and an older woman who looked strikingly similar. "My aunt," she explained when she noticed me looking. "She raised me." I didn't ask where she was now. Something in Elena's tone told me I already knew the answer. We sat at the dining table this time, tea instead of soup. Rain tapped gently against the windows. "I don't usually let people stay long," she admitted, fingers wrapped around her mug. "I'll try not to ruin the record." She looked at me for a second longer than necessary. "You're not ruining anything." That sentence landed differently than the others. Not dramatic, just honest. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was thick, like something was waiting to be said but didn't want to be rushed. "I should probably head back upstairs," I said finally, standing. She stood too close. I could smell her perfume, subtle, clean, something warm underneath. "Of course," she replied, but neither of us moved right away. Her eyes dropped to my hands, then lifted back to my face. For a split second, I thought she might reach out. I felt my breath catch in anticipation I didn't want to admit. Instead, she stepped back. "Good night," she said softly. "Good night." I lay awake later, annoyed at myself for being disappointed. That's when I knew I was in trouble. The next few weeks were a careful dance. We were friendly, warm, considerate, and hyper-aware of each other. Every smile felt loaded. Every casual touch sent a spark of something dangerous through me. I started catching myself thinking about her at odd times. In the shower, while answering emails, when my phone buzzed, hoping it was her, even though I had no reason to expect it. One evening, she texted me, "Elena, are you home?" "Yeah." "Everything okay?" "Yes, I just could use company, if that's all right." I hesitated for exactly 2 seconds before saying yes. She looked different when I arrived. Hair down, a sweater instead of her usual structured clothes. Less landlord, more woman. We didn't sit far apart this time. I almost didn't message you, she admitted. I didn't want to make things complicated. Too late, I said before I could stop myself. Her smile was small, but her eyes softened. We talked about heavier things that night, why she'd kept her life so controlled, how responsibility had a way of shrinking your world if you let it, how being alone felt safer than being disappointed. I don't regret the deal, she said quietly, but sometimes I worry you'll feel trapped by it. I don't, I replied immediately. Then, more carefully, I feel supported. She nodded, absorbing that. I want you to know, she said, you don't owe me anything. Not time, not gratitude, certainly not feelings. The word hung between us. I know, I said. And I did, but knowing didn't make the pull disappear. When our knees brushed this time, neither of us moved away. The contact was subtle, barely there, but it felt louder than any confession. She inhaled sharply. This is where it gets dangerous, she whispered. I turned toward her. Then maybe we should talk about it. Her gaze searched my face as if checking for fear. Finding none, just honesty. Okay, she said. Let's talk. But instead of talking, she reached out, slowly, deliberately, and rested her hand over mine. Not gripping, not claiming, just there. And in that moment, the deal stopped feeling like an agreement between landlord and tenant. It started feeling like something much harder to control. After that night, nothing was technically different. And yet, everything was. Elena didn't suddenly start coming upstairs every day. We didn't announce anything. We didn't cross any obvious lines. If someone had watched us from the outside, they would have seen two women who happened to live in the same building and occasionally shared tea. But inside that quiet normalcy, something had shifted and refused to settle back into place. I became hyper-aware of how often I thought about her, not in a dramatic, sweeping way, just small, constant moments, wondering if she'd eaten dinner, if she'd slept well, if she was okay when she seemed quieter than usual. That scared me. Dependency was a word I didn't like. I'd worked too hard to rebuild my independence to let myself lean too heavily on anyone, especially someone connected to my housing, my stability, my sense of safety. One evening, while answering emails in the kitchen, I caught myself glancing at the door, waiting for a knock that didn't come. I closed my laptop, irritated with myself. This wasn't what the deal was supposed to be. The pressure started coming from outside first. A friend came over one afternoon, someone who hadn't visited since I moved upstairs. "This place is incredible," she said, looking around. "How did you land this?" I hesitated. "My landlord helped me out." Her eyebrows lifted. "That's generous." I laughed it off, but the words stuck with me long after she left. Generous. What did it look like from the outside? That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on ground that might give way if anyone looked too closely. When Elena texted later asking if I wanted to walk in the courtyard, I almost said no. Almost. We walked slowly, the air cool enough to make our breath visible. She seemed distracted, hands tucked into her coat pockets. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, then shook her head. "I'm not sure." She stopped near the fountain, watching the water ripple. "I had a meeting today with my financial advisor." My stomach tightened. "About the building?" "Yes, about restructuring, long-term planning." She looked at me then, eyes serious. "About you." The word landed harder than I expected. "He asked why I'd left a unit empty while someone else lived rent-free," she continued. "He didn't accuse, he just questioned." I swallowed. "What did he say?" "That it was temporary," she replied. "That I was helping someone through a difficult period." "That's true," I said quickly. Too quickly. She studied me. "Is it?" The question wasn't sharp, it wasn't accusing, it was honest. I crossed my arms, hugging myself. "I don't want to be a problem." "You're not," she immediately said, "but I'm starting to worry about something else." "What?" That even if nothing inappropriate is happening, she said carefully, people will assume it is, and assumptions can hurt you more than truth. I nodded slowly. She was right. She always was. I don't want you to feel like you owe me, she continued, and I don't want to feel like I'm protecting something fragile by pretending it doesn't exist. I looked at her, really looked, at the lines of responsibility etched into her face, at the quiet strength she carried like armor. What are you saying? I asked softly. She exhaled. I'm saying we need to be careful, and I'm asking if you're okay with that. Careful. The word felt heavy. I don't want to hide, I admitted, but I also don't want to be reckless. She nodded. Neither do I. We stood there in silence, the distance deliberate this time, necessary. That night I dreamed of doors closing. The next week she pulled back. Not cold, not distant, just controlled. Conversations shorter, invitations fewer, touches non-existent. I told myself it was for the best, but my chest ached anyway. I started spending more time outside the apartment, coffee shops, libraries, anywhere that reminded me I wasn't dependent on one place or one person. One evening, I came home later than usual and found her sitting on the stairs outside my door. She looked up quickly when she heard me. I wasn't sure if you'd be back tonight, she said. I set my bag down slowly. Everything okay? No, she admitted, but I think that's the point. She stood, facing me, close enough to feel the warmth she'd been denying us both. I thought distance would make this easier, she said. It hasn't. My heart pounded. Alina, she continued, I know the risks. I know the power dynamics. I know what people might say. She reached out, stopping just short of touching my arm. But I also know I haven't felt this alive in years, and I don't want fear to be the reason I walk away. I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. Then don't, I said. She hesitated only a second before closing the distance. Her hand rested on my arm, gentle, grounding. This can't be hidden forever, she said quietly. I don't want it to be, I replied. She smiled then, not the careful one, the real one, the one that reached her eyes. That night, when she finally kissed me, it wasn't rushed. It was slow, intentional, like a decision. And in that moment, I understood something clearly for the first time. The deal had given me a place to stay, but what we were choosing now, that was something neither of us could pretend away. The first real consequence arrived quietly. No confrontation, no dramatic accusation, just a letter slipped under Alina's office door. She didn't show it to me right away. I found out because she stopped sleeping. I noticed the shadows under her eyes, the way she'd pause mid-sentence, distracted. The way her laugh disappeared first, replaced by something tighter, more careful. One night, I asked her directly, "You're pulling away again," I said, standing in her kitchen while she stared at a cup of tea she hadn't touched. She didn't deny it. "I didn't want to put this on you," she said, "but it's already touching your life, whether I want it to or not." She slid an envelope across the counter. Inside was a formal notice, not eviction, not yet, a compliance inquiry, a reminder of ethical boundaries, language that looked neutral but carried weight. Someone had noticed. "Who?" I asked. She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is how this looks." I read the words again, slower this time. Preferential treatment, potential conflict, professional discretion. "They're not accusing you," I said. "No," she replied. "They're warning me." The silence between us felt heavier than any argument. "I never wanted you to feel like a risk, or worse, like a mistake." I set the letter down. "I don't." She looked at me like she wanted to believe that, but didn't trust herself to. "I need to make a choice," she continued, "before someone else makes it for me." My chest tightened. "What kind of choice?" She inhaled slowly. "Between what's safe and what's honest. That night, she asked for space again. This time, it felt different. I went upstairs and sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd ignored the warning signs, every time I'd told myself we were being careful, every time I'd let comfort blur into hope. I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at the world for making something gentle feel dangerous. Days passed, then a week. We still spoke, but only when necessary. Polite, neutral, the kind of distance that pretends to be mature while quietly hurting everyone involved. I started packing boxes I didn't need to pack, just in case. One afternoon, Elena knocked on my door unexpectedly. She looked resolved, calm in the way people look right before they do something terrifying. "I found you another place," she said. The words hit me harder than anything else had. "Another apartment?" I asked. "Yes, comparable. Same neighborhood, rent-controlled. I'd cover the deposit." I felt something crack inside me. "So this is it," I said softly. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "This isn't about getting rid of you. It's about protecting you." "By pushing me away?" "By making sure no one can say you stayed because of me," she replied. I nodded slowly. "And what about what we feel?" Her jaw tightened. "That's the part I don't know how to protect." I walked to the window, needing space to breathe. "I never asked you to save me," I said. "You offered me stability, and yes, it helped. But I stayed because I wanted to, because of you." She stepped closer. "And that's exactly why this is so hard." I turned to face her. "Then don't turn it into something shameful." Her eyes softened, but she didn't back down. "I need to be sure that if we choose each other, it's not tangled in obligation." I exhaled. "So you want me to leave so we can be equals?" "Yes." The logic made sense. The timing did not. "I'll move," I said finally, "but not because I'm afraid, because I won't let anyone reduce what this is." She reached out then, finally letting herself touch me, her hand on my cheek, familiar, careful, devastating. "Thank you," she whispered. Packing felt surreal. Each box felt like a question mark, each empty shelf like a pause in a sentence that wasn't finished yet. On my last night in the apartment, I sat on the floor, surrounded by half-packed memories, wondering if I'd misread everything. Elena knocked softly. "I didn't want you to leave without this," she said, handing me a small envelope. Inside was a simple key. My personal apartment. Not the building, not tied to anything. Just a place I go when I don't want to be responsible for anyone. I looked at her, confused. "I'm not asking you to come. I'm just telling you that the door exists." Something in my chest loosened. "Why?" I asked. "Because choosing distance doesn't mean choosing absence." I moved out the next day. The new place was fine. Clean, bright, safe. But it wasn't home. Weeks passed. No late-night conversations, no accidental touches, no shared silences, and yet neither of us moved on. Then, one evening, as I stood outside a bookstore, my phone buzzed. "Elena, are you still holding on to the key?" I stared at the message, then typed back, "Me." "Yes." 3 dots appeared, paused, returned. "Elena. Then come over. Tonight, not because you need a place to stay, but because I don't want to keep choosing fear." My hands shook as I typed. "Me. I'm on my way." Because some choices don't ask for certainty, they ask for courage.
Elena's apartment didn't feel like a secret. That surprised me. I'd imagined something hidden, tucked away, a place that carried the same careful tension we'd been living inside for months. Instead, it was open, bright, personal in a way none of her other spaces had been. Books stacked without order, a throw blanket folded but clearly used, a coffee mug left in the sink like she wasn't trying to impress anyone here. When she opened the door, she didn't smile right away. She just looked at me, like she was checking something she'd been afraid to hope for. "You came?" she said. "Yes." Not, "I needed a place to stay," not, "I didn't have anywhere else to go," just, "yes." She stepped aside to let me in, closing the door behind us without hesitation. "This isn't about rescue," she said quietly, as if reading my thoughts, "or fixing anything." "I know," I replied. "I wouldn't be here if it was." We stood there for a moment, neither rushing forward. The space between us felt deliberate, chosen. "I filed the paperwork today," she said. "I disclosed everything, the arrangement, the timing, all of it." My heart skipped. What happened? "They weren't happy," she admitted, "but they couldn't find fault. The unit you lived in is empty now. The terms ended cleanly. No leverage, no ambiguity." She looked steadier than I'd ever seen her. "And you?" I asked. "I resigned from oversight of that building," she said simply, handed it off to a third-party manager. I stared at her. "That's a big step." "Yes," she agreed, "but it was the last one I needed to take." "So this," I gestured between us, "isn't tied to anything." "No," she said, "it's tied to us, or it doesn't happen at all." Something in my chest softened. For the first time, nothing hovered over us. No obligation, no imbalance, no fear disguised as responsibility. "I don't want you here out of loyalty, or gratitude, or history." She took a step closer. "I want you here because you choose to be." I reached for her hand, this time without hesitation. "I do," I said. Her breath hitched just slightly before she nodded. We didn't rush the kiss. We didn't need to. When it happened, it felt different than the others, less urgent, more grounded, like something that had survived being tested and was stronger for it. Later, we sat on the couch, legs tucked beneath us, the city humming quietly outside. "I was afraid," she admitted, "not of loving you, of becoming someone who used power without realizing it." "I know," I said. "That's why I stayed." She looked at me. "Stayed?" I could have left quietly, found another place, disappeared, but I didn't want to let fear decide for us. She smiled then, a real one, unguarded. "I've spent my life managing risk. This is the first time I'm choosing something without calculating the outcome." "That's terrifying," I teased gently. "Yes," she laughed softly, "but it feels honest." The weeks that followed weren't dramatic. No grand announcements, no sudden transformations, just two women learning how to exist in the same space without hiding. Mornings with shared coffee, evenings with conversations that didn't need an endpoint, disagreements handled slowly, carefully, without the threat of loss hanging over them. I didn't move in right away. That mattered to both of us. We wanted choice to stay louder than convenience. But over time, I found myself leaving things behind. A book, a sweater, a toothbrush that stopped feeling temporary. One evening, Elena noticed. She held up my mug, smiling. "You're nesting." I rolled my eyes. "I'm existing." She stepped closer. "Then stay." Not as an offer, not as a deal, as an invitation. Months later, we walked through the courtyard of the building where it had all started. The upstairs apartment was rented again. Laughter drifted from behind its windows, someone else's beginning. "Do you regret it?" I asked her. She shook her head. "No. I regret how long I waited to choose honesty." She squeezed my hand. "I don't regret you for a second." Neither did I. Because what we built wasn't quiet because it was secret. It was quiet because it was real. And when love stops being a transaction, when nothing is owed and everything is chosen, that's when it finally belongs to you. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been caught between gratitude and desire, safety and honesty, you're not alone. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had to choose between what was offered and what you truly wanted? Like the video if slow burn WLW stories matter. Subscribe for more emotional, realistic love stories. Share this with someone who believes love should never be a transaction.